First, want to start off with the winners. First, our ladies winner, Coco Gauff. She claimed her second slam title, defeating Aryna Sabalenka. Yeah, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on this, Myles. Obviously, a great accomplishment, especially with her bouncing back from finals defeats in Madrid and Rome and beating Sabalenka again in a major.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that she was the first woman in years to drop the first set in a championship Roland Garros final and come back to win definitely speaks a lot to her character and game out there on the court. My reaction is posted on Instagram, so you can kind of see the match point reaction to Coco Gauff. And might I say, I feel like it's very disingenuous for people that like work in tennis to be like, oh, I don't have favorites, or why can't you be impartial? And I'm like, well, I can work at that, but there are certain people that get a better reaction out of you, or you are tied to, or whatever the case may be. Because for us to work in this industry or like talk about it and give content, we were a fan first. So Coco Gauff, I'm a fan of, and I appreciate when she wins. And this was a great, thrilling win. So I think this will be one kind of similar to what Serena said. I mean, Coco has years and years ahead of her if health is on her side. Remember when Serena was like that 2015 Roland Garros will be one that she takes with her. This will probably be one that she remembers for quite a while, especially with all the aftermath that has happened afterwards. So it's amazing to go from, or to see Coco Gauff go from the quote unquote one slam wonder that people were kind of putting her in the box because she hadn't been to a Grand Slam final since 2023. And you know, the women's game, they're a couple of one slam wonders. So to see her go from 1 to 2, which is, you know, not everybody has 2 or multiple Grand Slam championships to their credit, is nice. And it was a great moment for women's tennis, I think.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think for me, her actually going all the way and winning the title solidified to me that I think she is top 2 best clay player that we have right now. And I think she's always been there, but she didn't necessarily have a big clay title to back it up. And now she has that. This is her second ever clay title, which is kind of crazy considering how strong she is. But some of that was due to her biggest nemesis, Iga, being better for all these years. And we all know that Coco, she honestly could have won Roland Garros multiple times if it weren't for Swiatek. But even aside from Iga, there was that one year where in 2021 where she lost to Krejcikova. I really think she could have won that one. But I think this year was really just more about the improvements in her ground game. Yes, we can all say Iga had a slump, but Coco has made significant improvements. And we're not really talking about the forehand really at all. If anything, it might be the serve, but the forehand, and it's been really night and day. And I remember when she played Raducanu in Rome, and a fan posted their previous match from the Australian Open in 2023. Like, she was doing I called it the chicken wing forehand. Like, it was not the prettiest sight to see.
Yeah.
But now, like, it's really a solid shot. And that's ultimately why she was able to get it done. And I think also I'm proud of Coco by how she bounced back after her, I'll say so-so spring. It wasn't necessarily terrible. She lost round of 16. It wasn't terrible. It could have been worse. It
wasn't great.
It wasn't great. Yeah, it wasn't great. She lost round of 16 in Indian Wells and Miami. Didn't win a match at all, actually, in the Middle East. So for her to kind of bounce back is a testament to her never say die and always trying to figure things out. And I guess a question for you is, how do you think she'll fare for the remainder of the year as far as results-wise and her consistency?
The thing about Coco's results is, I don't want to say that they can be all over the place, because that's not necessarily accurate, but they do come up and down. I don't know if I'll ever be comfortable, or she hasn't given me like a slate of results besides that summer 2023 where she won DC and Cincinnati, the US Open. Outside of that, she's the kind of player that I liken to a little bit of Venus Williams. Like, there are definitely stretches that you can see in their career where they have it all together, but the weaknesses in her game, like the serve and the forehand, I don't know if they'll ever go away. It's just something that she'll kind of have to tinker with and kind of play with as far as confidence. I think the serve and the forehand are barometers of where her like mental focus and confidence is. So it's tough for me to say that like she's going to go on this magnificent run and win 10, 20, 30 matches in a row. I don't necessarily foresee that. Would I love to see it? Absolutely. But I think her game is always going to be centered around, from what we've seen so far, a diligence to kind of get balls back and use the generational legs and athleticism that she has. As long as she has that, and he's obviously healthy, because health goes into a big part of that. And thank God we haven't seen any kind of like long stretch of hers where she's out with the injury, because that would suck for women's tennis and for her, obviously. But as long as she has that on her side, I think she's going to be okay. But I do see where the forehand and the serve and some of the hitches in those shots are just going to rear their ugly head sometimes, because yes, she won Roland Garros, and yes, the past 2 weeks she played some of her greatest tennis. But like you just said, that Doha, Dubai, Indian Wells, Miami stretch, it wasn't pretty. I literally remember watching her struggle against Uchijima at Indian Wells, and like, that is, we're talking about the same woman, and that was March. We're in June. Tennis rolls really quickly, but that's not that much time that has changed. So we'll see what happens when she gets on the grass and when she gets back to North American hard courts. But I do think it has to feel good to get that second title underneath your belt, especially which, you know, she said in press, she envisioned herself. She thought this would be the first one that she won because she really likes the conditions in Paris. Getting 2 underneath your belt is just even better than getting 1. You know, I think that just sets a really solid level of confidence that, you know what, when the tournament is big and the pressure's on, I know how to deliver because I've delivered in the past. So I think all things considered, that's good for her to kind of lean back on. And, you know, she gets to, I mean, she's quietly into the Hall of Fame.
I definitely agree. And one thing, it was really nice to see really so many people rally around Coco, celebrate her win. And it was huge, especially for it being the first time also since, I believe, Venus and Serena, like 2 decades, that we had an American win multiple slams. So just further cementing herself and becoming a household name, I think will be huge. And especially within the Black community, they've really been rallying behind her and the outpouring of love and support. Both the Obamas supported her and tweeted at her. So it's awesome to see. And it's great for tennis to have her doing well, honestly. Now, transitioning to someone who is not having the best time at it right now is our finalist from Roland Garros, Aryna Sabalenka. She has been getting a lot of backlash. And I knew, like, first, like, I was watching her trophy ceremony speech, and I was a little bit off put by her saying on the stage, this is a horrible final for me. Like, that's not something you say, like, in my opinion, on a
especially if you like won a set and you were out there for over 2.5 hours. It'd be different if Coco had like double bageled her. That would have made a little bit more sense, but that was a competitive final.
Match. It was a competitive match, and that wasn't a good look. Like, I was even saying, is like, she probably should have smashed her racket and gotten all the anger out like she did against Madison Keys at the Australian Open final. Perhaps she didn't want to do this because she got backlash for that too, but it was nowhere near as much backlash as this. So if next time she loses a slam final, which it very well could happen, she needs to probably do that. But I think her press conference comments really lit up, and I'm going to transition into this point later, but I think some of that was due to like Bleacher Report and their presence, because that press conference clip was from them, and they have a big following, and they blew it up. So I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but during the press conference comments, she was saying like, oh, it was more about me playing. She didn't play incredible. It was more about me playing poorly. And then another thing people didn't like was her saying that she thought that Iga likely would have won if Iga had beaten her in the semifinals. And looking back at the transcript, like, I was thinking, well, maybe did anyone ask her about Iga? But it was very unprovoked, which was like, that really shows just how salty she was. And I understand, especially with it being such a close match and losing back-to-back finals that you've lost, not back-to-back, but losing a second final to the same player, it's going to be frustrating, but it's just not great optics right now. And I'm going to, like, especially saying it too, of her saying this about Coco being a Black woman too. And right now she is public enemy number 1 of the Black community. She might not have gotten the same backlash if she said this about a white player, but then again, I don't think she has as much respect about Coco's game. I'm not going to say it's like explicitly racist, like, because it could have some racist undertones under it for sure. But I think some of it was Coco's game style, and Coco still doesn't have a lot of people's respect, even though she has made tremendous improvements in her game. But it's been a sentiment among Sabalenka's fans, and of course now Sabalenka herself, that Aryna gifted Gauff the US Open and now this. And that's truly what she feels.
It's very obvious that Sabalenka was salty. I even put on one of my Instagram stories, salty Sabs. And from my perspective, I don't mind a little bit of salt from a loser. Personally, I like my food seasoned. Clearly, I don't mind a little bit of salt. Now there is a limit to how much salt you can have, and I feel like Sabalenka kind of overdid it. But I'm not upset at the fact that she was upset. I'd rather her be honest than kind of feign that it didn't matter to her or that it wasn't that big of a deal. She's gotten to this point in her career by being pretty authentically herself, showing us the ups and the downs and the screaming and the all of that, which I can appreciate to a certain extent, but you do have to step into a little bit, especially after a Grand Slam final, the one that she was just in, that was clearly there. Sometimes as an athlete, maybe she didn't feel this, but it was easy to see as a spectator. The energy around that final was just special, and you don't want to mar or like bring the level of that special down by being salty and kind of unsportsmanlike in the press conference. And she did it from a couple different angles, like mentioning Iga when nobody else did, like you said. She also said that Coco basically shanked all her shots. It just wasn't a good look. And I don't necessarily want to put racism on top of it, because I do believe, I don't want anybody to be like, Myles, you're afraid to like call it what it is. I believe in I've seen overt racism and covert racism. So there may be a layer to it. And I also think that the people that we call locals, that are like not necessarily watching. I don't know why we call them locals. Shouldn't we be locals? Because we like
that's a good point.
We're locally the tennis people that watch every week, but neither here nor there. They see a lot of the framework of what was bigged up 20 years ago in the Sharapova and Serena Williams rivalry. Because if you're a local, you don't really know that much about women's tennis, but you know the ins and outs or somewhat of that Serena and Sharapova rivalry. You have another Belarusian woman and an American black woman, and you can kind of see how that framework of that situation fits into this situation. So I think there's people that are still salty about that, especially if they're Serena fans in the black community. There's definitely some of that going on. I honestly can't believe that Sabalenka is getting whacked as much as she is. Like I tweeted about it. Every time I refresh the social media page, it's like a new Sabalenka whack. It's a new journalist. It's a new pundit. It's a new content creator talking about this incident. And I do think Sabalenka's comments crossed a line. They were just very overtly salty, and they weren't sportsmanlike at all. They were rude. They were rude to somebody that not only had just beaten her, but had beaten her 2 years prior. Like, their rivalry isn't necessarily a Serena Sharapova. Sabalenka doesn't own Coco. Like, the head-to-head, I believe now is 6-5. So there's true tension and a back and forth when they play each other. I just would have liked to see Sabalenka give more respect in that moment. And I don't know if she needs a PR refresher, or somebody in her camp could have been like, hey girl, instead of going from the shower, I don't think an hour had passed before we got like the transcripts between like match point and the trophy ceremony to like when she was in that press. An hour may have passed, but definitely not 2. I wish you would have kind of taken a moment to kind of realize the good things that she had done by getting to that final, the things she could have improved on, because she's not wrong. If she doesn't have 70 unforced errors, that match might look different. The result might look different. It just came off like sour grapes, and you would have wanted, tennis is all about being gentlemanly and all that stuff, which I don't necessarily subscribe the most to. But in that moment, when somebody has beaten you fair and square, and all of those good things that happened in that match, it just wasn't a good look to come out and be like, well, she didn't really do that much. She just scoffed at her, and she tried to do damage control. But once it's out there, once TNT has spread it, that's a wrap. So I feel for her. Because she's in a weird position. And I before this moment, I personally had never had I don't like Sabalenka moment. But unfortunately, the people that have those moments, especially kind of like, below the surface, this is all they needed to be like, oh, I can't stand her. Because that's a lot of my personal inbox has been like, oh, she was cool, I guess, but now I can't stand her after this press conference. So not a good couple of days for Sabalenka fans and Sabalenka herself.
Now, I saw an interesting tweet because, again, like I guess the locals have been, they've been pushing it a little bit too much, in my opinion.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
With the name calling, like it was bad. There was one tweet that said Coco Gauff is bringing the worst people to tennis. I said it.
When are we going to start ignoring those people, Christian?
I still want to talk about the tweet because I think it's an interesting tweet. I don't agree with it, but I think that it is true that Coco has brought in a new type of not tennis audience, but new type of audience. Let's be frank. More Black people are tuned into the sport. Not as many of these fans are in tune with the intricacies of it. And we have seen, like, I guess, tweets, for example, even like Coco talking about drowning out the crowd with the Lois Bosson, and they took it and ran and made it seem like it was like the whole Sabalenka thing. At least for Sabalenka's sake, I hope that they don't face off in another slam final. There have been some just bad takes. And I even saw that you caught a stray because someone accused you of being white. I saw that tweet.
This is what I'm talking about on Twitter. I was like,
right,
like I post videos, I post content. My teeth are white. If you're a competitive athlete, and I know how I was when I was an athlete and I was really wanting to win. I mean, hell, I want to win Uno games now. You probably wouldn't want to put a mic to my face and ask me how I feel 10 seconds after I just lost. So I'm willing to give you grace that you won't have a great perspective. So when people were like peeping her saltiness at the trophy presentation, I was willing to give it a slide. But when she doubled down on it, I had to go back and be like, all right, Sabalenka, you were like, I'm taking a little bit of the grace away.
I saw that too.
Just a little bit of the grace. Because I gotta be honest, like once I saw the whole thing transpire, it was like, come on, Sab. It was like, Coco is not some new rival for you. Like, you have to be honest that you didn't play your best, but she also took advantage of the fact that you didn't, and she played better than you in the crucial moments. Like, and she's been in Grand Slam finals before, so all of this capitulation that she does, which she did capitulate at very integral parts of that match, it's like it's on her. But when do you find the line between being like, it's not like I played a computer out there, like I have to give respect? I don't know. Maybe she doesn't give a flying F about any of this, and she really is drowning herself in tequila and gummy bears.
Maybe she does well at Wimbledon. Like maybe it'll like her results will blow over, but I do think like the U.S. crowd night session, they're not going to be the biggest fans. Finding the silver lining, I think this can be a learning lesson for her because this is not the first time she's made salty comments. I even pulled a quote that she said about Mira after she lost their Indian Wells final. And she said, honestly, it was me against me. I mean, I made a lot of unforced errors on important points, and I just let her play a little bit better. At the beginning, everything was going straight forward, and then I made a couple mistakes. She kind of believed in herself. After that, I started playing much worse, and I was trying to find my rhythm back, but it didn't work this time. Even aside from that, the way she talked about her Madison Keys loss, like talking like she played horribly, where yes, she didn't play her best tennis in the first set, but credit has to be given to Keys. So I think bottom line, she's got to work on being a little bit more gracious in defeat and biting her tongue. But I mean, I feel like now she might be quote unquote faker. I think there should be a good balance. Though. Be a good balance. Because like you said, we should have more authenticity from our athletes, because we always say we want real athletes. We want you to be real, but then when they're this was, again, maybe crossing the line, but when they're like real, it like all hell breaks loose. So I think there needs to be some type of dialing it back on her end. But yeah,
it's because she's not necessarily wrong, because the power and game she possesses, it is on her racket most of the time. So if she comes away from that match feeling like, well, if I would have played better, I would have won, you're not technically wrong. But I don't know. Maybe she should just lean into being salty Sabs. Maybe she should change her Instagram name to that. It has a ring to it.
Maybe she plays into being the villain a little bit more, because from her vibes, like she seems to try to be like likable on TikTok and stuff.
Atmosphere.
Like the atmosphere and support. But like the TikTok comments are not on her side, so maybe she can become Novak. I mean, her and Novak are pretty buddy anyway, so maybe she can get some notes from her mentor and embrace this, because
not mentor.
It's not going to be good. But anyways, moving on from Sabalenka and Gauff, congratulations again to Coco on an incredible win.